The rise of the machines is just around the corner. Robot technology is moving into a whole new world. It is the stuff of science fiction. But should we fear the robot of the future? Or welcome innovation designed to make life easier for us all? In the near future, robots may run our world. They could manage our cities, our money, even the details of our private lives. They don't have minds of their own, but could they? If they did, what would happen to us? We've seen it at the cinema. Man wiped out by creatures of his creation.
For example, in the movie 2001, we had this beautiful spaceship with the state-of-the-art computer technology, and HAL was to carry out all commands given by humans. However, you know how humans are. We're messy. We give sloppy commands, and commands were given to the computer that logically could not be carried out. And so the robot said, well, if the humans give me orders which cannot be carried out, the only logical way to carry out these ridiculous commands is to eliminate the humans. And that's precisely what the robot did.
That's the problem with robots. No common sense. Man's innate ability to think, decide, and act has not always served the human race well. But wouldn't a world run by robots be worse? Much worse.
If there's an earthquake, all of a sudden we have a shutting down of the water supplies. And the robot will say, well, we must take care of all the fires that are breaking out. It'll divert all the water to taking care of the fires. And at that point, there's going to be a massive dislocation in the water supply inside a city. And the robot will simply not know which catastrophe is more important than another catastrophe.
But such scare stories aren't slowing down robot research. In Japan, scientists are competing to recreate the human race in metal, plastic, and silicon. This is Asimo, the first humanoid to walk out of the laboratory and into the real world. It's designed to look friendly, not the kind of robot who'd zap us with a laser. Every step Asimo takes has to be pre-planned, and its batteries only last for an hour. But it's taken nearly 20 years to get this machine up and walking. Masato Hirose was the project's chief engineer.
It's our dream to come up with a robot that could be useful in people's everyday lives. I am 46 now, and it would be nice if I could make Asimo into the kind of robot I could use myself in the next 10 years, by the time I'm 55.
Asimo's predecessor started off as just a pair of legs. Even so, he was a top-secret project. Scientists didn't want anybody to see their progress or witness their failures. This robot, built in 1986, could only walk in a straight line and needed nearly 20 seconds to take a single step. Picking up the pace was a huge challenge. To walk upright, a person uses 200 muscles, all controlled by the human brain. For a top-heavy robot to walk on two legs, its computer has to perform a constant balancing act.
No matter how many times we tried to do this, it always fell over. We refined it day by day, over and over again, and finally got the robot to walk.
Engineers spent years monitoring human body movements and then programming their robots to recreate them. It took 4 years to get the speed up to 1 kilometer an hour. It took another 2 years to get the robot to cope with slopes and stairs. Finally, in 1993, there'd been enough progress to attach the legs to something that looked like a body. P1 was almost 2 meters tall and weighed 180 kilos, twice the average weight for a man that size. But its successor, P2, was much lighter and more compact.
The first time I saw Honda P2, I was impressed and amazed. It was walking without wires. Everything was self-contained, onboard computers, onboard batteries. So it was impressive on that level, but also just because Honda was able to keep it a secret for 10 years.
This is the latest model to emerge from the lab, and is a sign of what may one day be in our homes. The quest to build the first artificial human is highly competitive. H7 is the result of a multi-million-dollar research project funded by the Japanese government. The objective? The creation of humanoid robots capable of performing complicated tasks, like playing football. Keeping your eye on the ball and kicking it with your feet may be child's play for humans, but it's a major advance for machines. James Kuffner developed much of H7's software.
If I tell my daughter to go fetch my keys from the kitchen table, I don't have to tell her, move your left foot in front of the right foot, turn 90 degrees, and then enter the kitchen door. She can do that automatically, and we'd like to get robots to have that level of autonomy.
H7 can track the ball with its eyes and make its own decisions about how to follow, catch, or kick it. But there are limits to what it can do of its own accord. H7 may have mastered football, but it's not so good at other sports. A whole new set of software is needed just to get H7 to pick up a bat. H7 doesn't find the bat by using its camera eyes. Instead, every movement is planned in advance and written into its software. H7 is no use if the bat is put in a different place. The most intelligent robot in the world still can't match the coordination and agility of a toddler.
The software that I wrote for H7 took over 5 years to develop and over 100,000 lines of code. And that involved getting the robot to move, pick up an object and put it from location A to location B. It didn't include object recognition, speech recognition, other kinds of sensing like computer vision functions. Robotics research has a history of constantly reinventing the wheel. Every time a new machine was developed, they had to write again from scratch the software to control it. So I really believe that we're not going to be able to make progress in robotics without some way to build upon the lessons learned.
Despite the challenges, scientists are pushing forward the development of humanoids, believing there will soon be a need for them in the home and the workplace.
If you take a look at the Japanese population, it is aging rapidly. Labor is extremely expensive. In the United States, because we have a large immigrant population, cheap labor is not such a big problem. Why be satisfied with a mechanical maid or butler when you can get a real maid or a real butler?
But in Japan, mechanical servants have a bright future, and not just in the home. Which is why the Japanese government is funding the development of industrial robots. HRP-1 is a remote-controlled robot. In the future, versions of this robot could replace human workers on construction sites. HRP-2 is designed to help people with heavy manual work. It's remotely controlled by instructions given through a headset. Creating a robotic workforce could be big business, a real boost to Japan's economy. But But there are still a few snags to overcome. Staying upright is a delicate balancing act. Humans who have 10 billion neurons in their brain have spent over 2 million years learning how to do it. Morph 2 is a miniature humanoid, not always on its toes. Like a human, it can sense when it's off balance, but it's not always successful at compensating. But when it does manage to stay upright, its range of movement is impressive. A whole new meaning to agility tests. This is Morph 3. Its incredible flexibility is made possible by 26 joints, all coordinated by 133 sensors and gyroscopes, which detect changes in pressure and position. But they can't process all that information as quickly as humans, which is one reason they fall over so often. While humanoids are still being developed, other robots are already being put to work. PackBot is a robot designed to help the police or armed forces in dangerous operations.
One of the classic situations for the PackBot is a situation where a bad guy has barricaded himself inside a building and a police force is outside looking to make an entry. And they have very little information about what is going on in that building. So the robot is designed to climb stairs, climb into that building, look around, essentially put eyes and ears inside that building, give an idea where the doors are, where the stairway is, where the bad guys are, how many bad guys there are, if there are good guys, and if the bad guys are still alive.
PackBot can be controlled from almost a kilometer away. It's a versatile robot, equipped with cameras, microphones, infrared sensors and sonar. The satellite navigation system tells its operator where it is, as well as the roll and pitch of the terrain.
We're looking at adding chemical sensors, bomb detection sniffers, mine detection platforms. Basically any kind of sensor that you can come up with, we can incorporate on the back of the robot.
PackBot is housed in an impact-resistant aluminium shell that can survive a 3-meter drop onto concrete at extreme temperatures. It can move at speeds of almost 20 kilometers an hour and through 3 meters of water. If it lands upside down, its flippers turn it over. One reason it's so tough, it has no wires that might break or become disconnected.
I'm at the landing, clear at this point.
Stairway clear?
Clear.
1, 2, 3. Go.
This is only a police exercise, but PackBot has already seen real-life action, having worked at New York's Ground Zero, helping in the search for survivors.
And this is particularly important now where the loss of human life isn't tolerated anymore during war or military action, or civil action for that matter.
Scientists are already working on the next generation of PackBots, with even more capabilities. The development of an extending neck will enable the robot to peer around corners.
I'm turning the robot.
Okay, Tommy, what do you got?
2 people, 1 suspect and 1 hostage. He's got a knife in his right hand. There's a female on the ground.
Go.
At the moment, PackBot works alone. But there are situations when it will be an advantage to have a whole team. This is becoming possible with new technology called Swarm. This group of little robots works cooperatively. At the moment, they are playing Follow My Leader. The inspiration for their software, the behavior of ants and bees.
In nature, 20 million individuals in some of the larger societies of ants all come together and work for a common goal. And they don't have cell phones, they don't have internet, they don't have GPS, but yet they're able to work together collectively and to do complex things like map their environment, form paths, carry food around, communicate information to their nest mates, things like that. So we're trying to get some of that intelligence into robots.
Swarm bots can talk to each other without human control. Follow My Leader makes communication easy, especially underground where radio links don't work. The swarm can pass messages through each other until they reach the surface.
One robot can say, I need 5 robots to follow me, and 5 robots will run and compete to be the 5 that get to follow, and they'll follow this robot like a train. If one of the robots fails, maybe its motor dies, or maybe it gets caught in a crevice, the world is very difficult. It doesn't matter, because another robot can just jump in and take its place.
Teamwork means the swarm can spread out at speed, covering a wide area quickly. The robots can create an up-to-the-minute moving map of the disaster area.
So, for example, you could put a lot of swarm members into a burning building, and they could spread out. And they could all have sensors that say where the hot spots are, where the smoke density is, where people might be found. So you've got this map that's growing very quickly. One robot wandering around could never do that.
Ultimately, the goal is to construct thousands of swarm robots, clever enough to take on intricate tasks in difficult environments, such as searching for landmines, rummaging through rubble in the aftermath of an earthquake, or even exploring forbidden planets like Mars.
Another idea is that by having a large number of robots, they can all be relatively cheap. It's not so important if one of them breaks. So now, if you wanted to have a mission on Mars, for example, imagine dropping 1,000 robots. It doesn't matter if 80% of them fail when they're dropped. There's still 20% down there that are running around collecting information. Whereas if you just had one very expensive robot and it broke, the mission has failed.
And with these uncomplaining automatons doing the dirty work, there's no risk to human life.
Robots can withstand the stresses, the strain, the radiation, the deprivation that exists in outer space. They don't complain, they don't require life support, and they don't have to come back.
But space research will have job opportunities for bigger robots too. Robonaut is a remote control robot developed by NASA to work outside a space station where there's danger from space debris and cosmic rays. Safe inside the space station, the astronaut wears a special visor and glove. When he turns his head, the robot's head turns too, and sends back video images of what it can see. When the astronaut moves his hand, the robot mimics the action. One advantage of humanoid robots is that they can work with tools and equipment designed for people to use. But if you don't live in a space station, you might want something a little bit friendlier around the house. How about a robot that could greet you at the door? This is Papero, the first domestic robot, coming soon to a high street near you.
Hello. 調子はどう? I'm fine, thank you. Yahoo!
Papero stands for Partner Personal Robot. It's a PC on wheels. It could act as your personal secretary. It can take voice messages, send and receive email, even operate the TV.
6チャンネル. Hi, hi.
Papero is programmed to respond to human requests. It recognizes 650 voice commands and speaks 3,000 phrases. It recognizes people by their faces and recalls facts about them, like their blood types and birth dates. You know when Papero is listening to you because its ears turn green.
Papero can easily be linked to the internet or telephone. This means that humans can check what's happening at home when they're away. For example, if you can't remember whether you turned off the gas cooker, you can use Papero to see pictures inside your house. You can also check on your pets at home.
And because Papero is compact and on wheels, it's very stable. It won't crush small children or trip over pets. And if it does bump into something, it's unlikely to do any damage. Papero likes to be stroked. This tells it that you're pleased. And it remembers its good behavior for future occasions. And if you need a dancing partner, Papero is definitely for you. Papero can be as endearing or as irritating as a 2-year-old child. But it has one great advantage over any toddler. "20 years of research have gone into today's robots. But are they ready to join the workforce?
Our robots today have the collective intelligence and wisdom of a cockroach, a retarded cockroach, a lobotomized retarded cockroach. However, because of the doubling time of computers, I think that by the year 2020, we may have robots that are as intelligent as mice, perhaps as intelligent as a dog.
If robots are really going to be useful, they're going to have to learn how to learn. The dream of developing a human robot has endured for decades, and substantial progress has been made. Now they can talk, walk, and sometimes outsmart us. Playing chess against a grandmaster demands intellectual skill. But in 1997, the world's greatest chess player, Garry Kasparov, was beaten by a computer called Deep Blue. So, if they are so clever, why haven't we put them to work yet?
The real problem, why we don't have mechanical maids and butlers, is the common sense problem. Things we take for granted are almost impossible to perform by robots. We know that water is wet. We know that strings can pull, strings cannot push. We know that when you die, you don't come back the next day.
It would take experts centuries to program a robot to have the common sense of a 2-year-old. So now, robot designers in America are trying a different approach, getting them to learn. Cog is a robot that, like a baby, is learning through experience. Cog has several cameras. Through them it can see objects in wide angle or close up. It can track objects, sense and depict color.
You see, robots can see. In fact, robots can see about 10 times better than you can see. But robots don't understand what they are seeing. They don't understand anything more than lines and simple geometric patterns.
At first, Cog didn't know where its arms stopped and where an external object began. But by seeing and poking these toys, Cog is slowly learning the map of its own arm and how to distinguish a particular object from the background. Cog now knows that cars move forwards or backwards, not sideways. So, even when the car is placed in a different direction, Cog hits it from the front or back. If robots can learn from experience, they won't have to be programmed for every task. But this initiative is still labor-intensive.
We'd like to be able to take that robot in the future and show it, here's how to do the ironing. You know, you fold it this way, you do that, and that's how to iron. You do it now. We'd like the robot to understand that, be able to map it to its own body and do the task.
This is K1. K1 isn't doing the ironing yet, but it does try to copy its programmer's workout. Judging by this performance, no one is going to let it loose on the ironing for some time. Copying is just the first stage of developing intelligence. If K1 is ever going to learn how to do the ironing, it will not only have to know how to hold the clothes and move the iron, it will also have to understand that the aim of the exercise is to get the clothes free from creases. To achieve this, K1's designer, Yasuo Kuniyoshi, sees a future where robots will grow up and learn alongside humans.
This might sound like a science fiction story, but I'm talking about a very long term ahead, the far future. It can happen that newborn human babies are assigned partner robots from the beginning and then grow up together with a robot.
A robot would learn its human partner's likes and dislikes and adapt its behavior accordingly. But that's a long way off for K1. After all that exercise, it's time to strip off and cool down.
Hockey here. Okay, you go, baby. Now you're playing.
Darren Bentivegna is teaching DB to play air hockey. DB's camera eyes have been set up to track the puck's bright colour. So far, so good. As long as the lighting conditions don't change.
Now you know how to play it. Alright, getting a little better.
But to play the game, DB not only needs to see the puck, but to predict where it will be a few seconds later.
That's my score.
The puck not always can be seen. Sometimes it goes underneath an arm or it's in a corner. So when this happens, DB cannot see the puck anymore. So it's almost as if you were to play air hockey and somebody was always to do this to you. So you're trying to predict, and then all of a sudden somebody covers your eyes, and then they take your hands away, and now the environment has changed.
Yeah, okay, now hug the puck now. Give it up.
Once DB has learned how to keep an eye on the puck, it then needs reasoning skills to decide its strategy. Having chosen its shot, DB needs the motor skills to execute it. And all these seeing, reasoning and action skills need to happen instantly. The puck waits for no man and no thing. Is it worth all this effort just to teach a robot a game?
Through verbal communication, you could tell DB or teach DB new skills, as you would teach a person. So, for example, if you wanted to have DB do ironing in your home, you would have DB in the location, and you would tell DB, watch DB, this is how we iron. We take the iron, we move it across the clothes, and we look for the wrinkles, and we make sure we don't burn. And it would know about all these items through these communications, and little by little build up more and more skills.
One day you'll be able to play as good as this. Well, I'm hoping you'll be able to play better.
But it's very important that, of course, that you teach your robot well and that it learns well, because you can have things as your robot trying to cook your dog or burn your clothes or break your dishes, and of course this is not what we want.
If robots could learn and repeat tasks just by watching, they could become invaluable in the workplace. Other developers are taking the concept of a human robot one step further. They hope to produce a robot that not only copies our movements, but also our emotions and facial expressions. Fumio Hara directs the Faced Robot program at Tokyo's Science University.
The easiest expression to replicate is excitement. The corners of the mouth move up and the eyes go down slightly. But for surprise, the eyes get bigger and the mouth opens, like this. And for fear, you're scared. Everything tightens up, and the eyes are slightly bigger, and the mouth horizontal.
Not exactly a pretty face, but a functioning face, the first of its kind in the world. Silicon is stretched over the skull, made up of semiconductors, wires and pistons. The wires have to be positioned in exactly the right place to replicate the muscles in a human face. But expressions like fear, surprise and anger use similar muscles and can be difficult to tell apart. So it's hard to make the silicon look expressive.
We call it virtual communication. We just want to find out how well a machine can fool people by creating realistic expressions.
Hara believes that a great deal of communication is through facial expression alone. To communicate effectively with humans, robots will need to express feelings we can understand. With the help of tiny video cameras mounted behind the eyeballs, this robot can already read human faces and copy what it sees. It's programmed to recognize and recreate 6 emotions. But Hara wants to give the face a voice so the robot can not only look angry, but sound angry. Meet WE4, Mr. Personality. It really seems to enjoy tracking a red ball and doesn't like being ignored. It shows surprise when the scientist opens a bottle of vodka, but it does like the smell. WE4 can make expressions of disgust, fear, anger, surprise, sadness, and happiness. Once a robot can express these reactions spontaneously, it will be well on the way to having a personality.
For successful communication, the key issue is compatibility. 2 incompatible people are not likely to become lovers or marry each other. The next step is to make each individual robot's personality harmonize with individual people.
Rodney Brooks is developing a sociable humanoid robot he calls Kismet.
Do you want to talk to me today? What do you think?
More than that.
I'm too close? What if I get this close to you? What do you think? Right now, Kismet is modeling a very young infant who doesn't really have language. So it babbles and does turn-taking, as you can do with a young infant, back and forth. But there's not too many words that it understands, and it can mimic a little bit, and we're having it learn about simple objects by talking to it. Can you see me?
Yes.
No, that's a bright light, isn't it? You're much more interested in the bright lights than my face today. Come over here.
Kismet engages with people through an expressive face-to-face interaction. Brooks was inspired by infant social development and psychology.
Hero.
Kismet has a bunch of different emotions, and it will react differently to the same stimulus depending on what emotional state it's in.
Sad.
So we never know from minute to minute or even day to day how it's going to interact with us.
Then Ralph.
Hello.
Hello.
Do you like me?
Yes.
Kismet was designed to react to social cues and learn from a human instructor.
Kismet, say horsey. Say horsey.
Horsey.
Good robot. There you go. Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Kismet.
15 computers are involved in making Kismet either bored, lonely, stimulated, tired, talkative, or silent. It's still only a rudimentary personality, but robots are slowly becoming more and more like humans.
Very smart robot, Kismet.
I think we'll still want plenty of robots that don't have any emotions. My refrigerator works 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and I don't want to feel sorry for it having to work so hard. But I think there may be some roles for emotions in robots that we want to interact with on an everyday basis, because it's a very intuitive way of us understanding what's going on.
Robots are already in the workplace, and they may soon be in our homes. But what about more intimate, life-changing involvement? Eric Harper looks like anybody else. But one part of his body is completely robotic. 9 years ago, Eric lost his right arm in a printing press accident.
The day I lost my arm, I had been working late. The rest of the shift had gone home, and I jumped up onto the machine and actually fell in and was drawn into the machine, and then it shut down. My arm's stuck in the press, and day shift isn't going to come in till 5:30, so I have 4 hours to wait.
Eric was eventually rescued, but most of his right arm had to be amputated.
I was right-handed, and having lost my arm, it was like, oh, well, this is going to kill me? No. I'm going to go on. I'm going to do what I want to do. I have a life to live, and it's not going to stop me.
The robotics in Eric's new arm are designed to respond naturally to his body movements. The arm consists of microprocessors, circuit boards, motors and gears. It weighs nearly 3 kilos. Electrodes in the socket receive electrical impulses from what's left of Eric's muscles. A valve seals the vacuum inside his false arm, helping to keep it in place. A computer reads the electrical impulses from Eric's back muscles and bends his robotic elbow, raising his forearm. Eric can make his hand close by flexing his biceps and open by flexing his triceps.
Like all robots, we have to run on battery power, and I have to pop out the battery on the bottom just like this, and then get a new battery and put it back. Occasionally I'll get caught and I'll just run out of energy.
Eric's arm, although not perfect, has changed his life. So will this technology one day be able to improve our brains as well as our bodies? This stroke victim can't move or speak, but an electronic brain implant gives him the ability to operate a computer by the power of thought alone. His thoughts generate electrical activity in the implant, which is picked up by an aerial link to the computer. The signals are then translated into action, and the cursor moves on the screen.
The brain is able to communicate with electronic devices really because they speak the same language, which is electricity.
A two-way signaling system is being developed so that implants can also receive information from other parts of the body.
We want to bring touch into the brain directly using stimulation through arrays of electrodes in the brain. And we think that it will be possible someday for people who are quadriplegic to be able to feel their body again.
External brain stimulation is already being put to the test. This is the world's first radio-controlled rat.
I didn't set out to make jihad ninja rats. What we wanted to do was an experiment that gave us a sense about how well animals understand signals that come directly into their brain.
Rats have poor eyesight. They use their whiskers to find their way around in the dark. 3 electrical probes, each the thickness of a single hair, were implanted in the part of the rat's brain that picks up signals from its whiskers. The operator can direct the rat by typing commands into the computer.
In one way, you could compare the system to a child's remote-controlled car. An operator stands with a laptop and sends out key signals.
When the signals are turned off, the rat becomes confused until the next signal is given. Dr. Talwar believes his remote-controlled rats could be very useful.
At the time we were doing the experiment, 9/11 happened in New York, and we were looking at these images on television, and it occurred to us that what we have in front of us could be a very cool technology to solve many of the search and rescue problems.
Rats could be invaluable for search and rescue amongst wreckage, or for sniffing out hidden landmines. Unlike clunky machines, rats are familiar with rough terrain and small spaces. The concept has not been well received by animal rights groups. Such experiments will be regulated and may be limited if they're shown to cause unnecessary harm or stress to the rats and mice. But one day, humans might choose to have brain implants themselves.
As the baby boomers of the world get older and older and more scared of falling apart, I think you'll see lots and lots more medical pressure to augment our bodies and improve them through putting direct silicon digital connections inside our bodies. We've seen time and again that what starts out as a technology for helping people who are ill or sick or injured then becomes optional. And the great example of that is cosmetic surgery. It started out for helping people with burns, but now cosmetic surgery has a whole life of its own for improving people's looks and well-being.
If this is what we're prepared to do to make ourselves more beautiful, what would we do to be brighter, more talented, more athletic?
We could give people supranormal senses. We can give them the ability to have ultrasound. If you have ultrasound, then you can detect the presence of objects near you without seeing them. You might be able to use infrared, which would allow you to see in the dark. You might have supranormal reflexes. You'd be able to hit a baseball coming at you much faster than you can now.
Once you have that, it's not very far to getting a wireless internet connection inside our head. So I fully expect 20 to 25 years from now, a lot of us, our grandchildren especially, will be walking around with wireless internet connections.
And there will be robotic devices throughout our environment. Millions of chips will be embedded in our furniture, utensils and clothing.
Like in a Disney movie, we'll talk to tea kettles and teacups, and we'll talk to our furniture. And instead of having a robot doctor, our robot doctor could very well be our clothing, for example, with chips in it. Our clothing will monitor our health, our heartbeat, monitor our bodily fluids, and in case of an accident, our clothing will alert the authorities and download our entire medical history before the ambulance arrives.
The rise of machines could be just around the corner. And this may be a source of hope, not fear, because the robots running our lives are unlikely to be the metal and silicon creations of science fiction. They'll be part of us.
The future of robots is us, and us will be the robots. The combination of person and robotic technology is going to be far better than any pure robot that we can build.
Our new robo-beings. A collaboration of man and machine, flesh and technology. Not Homo sapiens, but Robo sapiens. United in structure, brain, heart, and soul.
Next tonight, there's a terrifying game of cat and mouse off the coast of Bermuda when American and Soviet subs collided. Nuclear sharks after the break.